Hey friend, Graham here from recordingrevolution.com. Today let's talk about your mix. When you're done recording a song and you're ready to blend it all together, mix it together, add effects, add plugins, make it sound amazing. Or if you're given a song to mix from a client and it's your job to mix it, how you start makes a huge difference. And what I want to show you actually is a two-part series. In the second video, next week, I want to show you how to mix your song in under an hour, which sounds crazy, but I'm a huge proponent of mixing fast because it helps you stay creative and keep perspective, which is the hardest thing. Objectivity, perspective is the hardest thing to keep as a mix engineer. So mixing fast is really important, and I'm going to show you that in next week's video, but you can't mix fast unless you've got the mix set up properly, and that's what today's video is. I want to show you the 4-step process I go through with every song to prep it for a really good mix and a really fast mix. It's very simple. Once you get these 4 steps locked in, it'll really help you set yourself up for success. Now, this will apply to you, again, if you are mixing your own songs you've already recorded, and this will apply to you if you're mixing songs for clients. I'm going to treat it as if I'm getting a song from a client because that's the situation here. I didn't record this, but if you record your own material that you're mixing, pay attention, because if you're smart, you can do some of these steps along the way while you're recording to save yourself even more time when it comes time to mix. So I'm going to show you these 4 steps to set up your mix so it's ready to mix quickly. All right, step number 1 is visual. It has nothing to do with the sound. It is organizing the session from track order to track color. And as you can see here, I got all the tracks labeled and organized the way I like. I start with drums grouped all the way to the left when I'm in mix mode, and it's the top of the session in edit mode. I always do drums that way. You can do it your own way. I'm just showing you how I like to do it, but pick a way so that every time you mix, your tracks are always in the same place. Imagine a mixing console. If you were to mix on a console, you would always lay out the console the same way because it helps you mix faster. When you had to slide down, if you've got a 32 track SSL in front of you, you don't want to have to guess where the kick drum is. You always want the kick drum on channel 1 or channel 10 or wherever you like it. Some mixers like to have the kick drum right in the middle, channel 16. Wherever you like it, keep it there for every song that you ever mix. That way you're not looking for things. So I always have kick drum as the very, very first track. Drums are always on the left, and I always put them in a reddish color. Bass follows that. If it's 1 bass track like today, that's it. If it's 7, then I'll have 7 bass tracks right there. I follow bass with guitars. A lot of guitars in this session. A lot of layered tracks. Acoustic, electric, I don't care. I put them all in one color here. Then I'll have keyboards, synths, and other virtual instruments right after that in an orange. And I'll follow that with vocals, with lead vocal as the first in the vocal tracks, followed by backgrounds and harmonies, gang vocals, etc. And it just follows top all the way down visually here. This shouldn't take you long. If you're recording, you can be organizing as you go. If you get a session from someone, you have to kind of hunt around and listen and see how tracks are labeled and kind of figure them out and put them all together. It's worth taking 10 minutes to do this because it will make mixing so much faster in the long run. So visually, step 1, that's all it is. Visually organize the session so it makes sense to you. This session's maybe 30, 40 tracks. Very important. If I had 70, 80 tracks, doubly important. The more tracks you have, the more important this is. It helps you mix faster. All right, if that's step 1, step 2 is an often overlooked one. Now we're getting into the audio side of things, and that is gain staging. When you get a session, or if you record a session, sometimes you've got tracks that were just recorded too loud, and they're not going to sound their best when they're recorded too loud. They're not going to sound their best out of your converters. They're not going to sound their best going through plugins. There's no need sonically to have tracks really, really loud. I drive this point home often here on Recording Revolution. So let me show you how I address that in a session. Most of these tracks well recorded, but some are a little hotter than others. So, for example, take a listen to where we are. Like that guitar is pretty loud. So it doesn't need to be that loud. What I'm going to do is in Pro Tools, I'm going to zoom in here, make this track a little bigger. Pro Tools has something called clip gain, and right down here, there's a little fader at the bottom of every audio clip, and it says 0 dB because that's the base level that it was given to me at. And there's a little teeny fader icon. What I like to do is click and drag that down. See how I just made the audio wave smaller? So this is back to where it was. Take it down about 6 dB, let's say. So now I've turned not the fader of the whole track down. That's still, all the faders are at 0. They're at unity gain. But I've just made the actual audio track itself quieter so that when it goes through plugins, it's going to be at a quieter level, so it'll be at a more optimal level. Right, so its average level was about -20, -19 RMS, which is good, and it was peaking around like -10. That was just a much more conservative level. So if you see things that are clipping, definitely turn them down. And if you see things that just are really hovering, where peak volume can be high, that's the tricky thing. Peak volume can be high, like a kick drum. Right, that's peaking. It's peaking at -5. You see its average volume is pretty low. It's -22, right? Drums are going to have a much higher peak to average level because they're just very transient heavy. I don't mind high peaking drums as long as the average level is kind of low. It's really guitars and vocals and keys and synths and bass where the level can be way too hot. So I turn that one down. I'll go through and systematically turn things down. Now, you can also turn things up. Here's the lead vocal, and I think her vocal is pretty quiet.
Early in the morning, don't get home till late at night. Boss man keeps us running.
Right? I'm going to need to get that vocal up in volume in the mix anyway, because that's the main thing. So I'm going to go ahead and actually gain her up because I think it's too quiet for the vocal. So I'm going to just grab her fader here, turn it up a bit.
Early in the morning, don't get home till late at night. Boss man keeps us running.
So now her vocal is average -18 or so, and she's peaking at like -6. Much better level for me to throw her into a compressor, EQ, things like that. I'm not going to be fighting the rest of the band. So I would systematically go through and gain every track, usually down. Rarely am I gaining it up like that vocal, but usually down so that they're a more conservative level. So let me do some of that real quick here. All right, once I've gained down all the tracks, step 2 is complete. I've got organized session. I've got healthier gain levels. Step 3 is the most fun, and that is creating a static balance of volume and pan. So this is where you actually get to start mixing. This is where we're going to take tracks. Everything shouldn't be at this volume, and everything shouldn't be panned up the middle. So we're going to go through and start to balance the faders. This is the fun part. And you don't want to rush this part. I would say set a timer, do 20 minutes at least where you're just looping the song and starting to balance the faders against each other and balance the pan pots left and right to give everything its own space. This is where we're creating a picture of the mix. So I'm going to press play and do a little bit of this in front of you, and then I'll zip through it so we can show you where we're at.
Paycheck keeps us coming back. It don't keep us from getting right.
My goodness, those guys. So you loop around, you kind of balance the faders to each other, the pan pots, and you continue to change because over the song, the balance might want to change. You might feel like the guitar's at a good spot, and then it's not in the bridge. And so we can make it perfect and adjust that later with automation. But what I try to do is find if there's one fader level and one pan pot position for each track that I could leave it at for the whole song, where would that be? Where does it sound good 85% of the time? Where is it appropriate 85% of the time? That's what I try to do here and really have fun here. This is the best part of mixing before you even add plugins is getting that balance. So I start to get a volume balance. You can see I've kind of left faders where they are. Generally, I'm pulling them down so they balance against each other. And most things are up the middle, hard left or right. With my drums, since I treat that as one instrument, I don't like it to be as wide. I like it to be more mono up the middle. So I bring those in a bit. A couple of things at 50%. And you just create a fun balance. That's step 3. Now, step 4 could be completed in one snap, and then we're done. It depends on how your balance goes. And that is checking the final headroom of your master fader. Headroom is simply how much space do you have between your loudest peak on your master fader and the top. 0 dB, which is the ceiling where your converters clip, where it doesn't sound good. And there's no need to be up top here because you're not losing any quality of signal by being quieter in the digital domain, and you certainly aren't gaining anything by getting close to 0. So what we want to do is take a look at the loudest part of the song and then take a look at our master fader. So by default, let's see where we are with this part of the song.
Paycheck keeps us coming back. It don't keep us from getting right. One thing's for sure, come payday, we gotta have our countrywide.
So I'm peaking at -5, which is not bad. I would say -6 is kind of a sweet spot of where you want to be peaking, but that's good. We got some room there. But let's look at a louder part of the song. Let's see. Let's get to this sort of rockin' end here. So you can see when there's more instrumentation in, it's peaking at like -3. And so that's a little high. It's still a safe zone. So I could leave it here, or if I wanted to be a little more conservative because I know I'm going to add plugins and I'm not going to try to make the mix louder with plugins, but invariably you're going to add some gain, is I could turn everything down a little bit on the fader level here, or this is one reason why I have this bonus master fader here. This fader controls the level going to my master fader. So I can just take this down 3 dB. And now I've basically turned down everything hitting my master fader by 3 dB. Great. So now at the loudest part of the song, I'm peaking at -6, -5, and that gives me plenty of headroom to start mixing, adding plugins both on the master fader and the individual tracks. So now my song is ready for the rest of the mixing process. This is a critical 4-step setup. It's that organizing of the tracks and the sessions and color coding, however makes sense to you. So it logically, visually makes sense to you. You're laying out your console the way that makes sense to you. You are gain staging. You're taking tracks that are recorded too hot and bringing them down to a conservative level, making sure that nothing is clipping for sure, and then that everything is hovering around 50 to 75% of the way up the meter to give you plenty of headroom so your plugins sound their best. You're not clipping your master fader, all that good stuff. 3 is where we really started the mixing process by getting the appropriate volume balance and pan balance. No plugins needed. You just get that good static mix. And then 4, we made sure that we had plenty of headroom on our master fader, looking to peak around -6 at the loudest part of the song, gives you plenty of space for the mixing and mastering phase. That's it. At this point, I'm ready to dive into all the plugins and all the effects and all the things that most of us jump to at the first stages of a mix. Well, now we're really ready to mix. And in the next video, I'm going to show you how to mix the song in under an hour. Now, if you want to dive a little deeper into the song production process, the mixing process, and producing music in general, I've put together an entire step-by-step guide on sort of the entire workflow for creating music in your home studio, and answered a lot of the biggest questions I get about how do you record tracks well in your home studio? How do you mix well? What is mastering? How do you master well? All of these things. What are the professional guys doing behind the scenes to make their songs sound so good? And I boiled it all down into a guide that covers the 6 steps that every song goes through to get radio ready, to be sonically good enough to be played on the radio, on major TV, that kind of stuff. You need your songs to sound good. What do we have to do to get them there? Well, there's 6 distinct steps. I've put them all together for you in a 6-step guide called my Radio Ready Guide. And you can get that at radioreadyguide.com for free as my gift to you. So go download that. I'll put the link here in the video, and it's also in the description box. Go check it out, download it, read it, reference it. It's going to help you as you're making music. It's a simple map for you, a simple tool, and a gift for you just for being a viewer and watching these videos. So check it out at radioreadyguide.com, and then check out the next video coming out soon on how to mix your song and master it in under an hour.